If you've ever wished your giving could be both simpler and more strategic, there's a powerful tool worth knowing about: the Donor Advised Fund, or DAF for short. Hi, I'm Rob West. Today we'll unpack what a Donor Advised Fund is, how it works, its advantages and limitations, and how it can help you practice wise, intentional generosity. And then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance Live, biblical wisdom for your financial decisions. Before we talk strategy, let's start with Scripture. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 9:7, "Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver." Generosity begins in the heart, not in the tax code. But wise stewardship means we can use tools that help us maximize our impact for the kingdom. A donor-advised fund, when used rightly, can help you do both: give joyfully and steward resources efficiently. Think of a DAF as a charitable checking account designed to support the causes you care about. You contribute cash, stock, or other assets, receive an immediate tax deduction, and then recommend grants to ministries or charities on your timetable. In other words, it separates the act of giving from the act of distributing. You can make a large contribution in a high-income year or before selling an asset for tax advantages, and then prayerfully take time to decide where those dollars should go. Behind the scenes, the DAF is managed by a sponsoring organization. For example, we recommend the National Christian Foundation, one of the largest and most trusted Christian providers, founded by Larry Burkett and Ron Blue, among others. They handle the record keeping, they issue the grants, they provide the online tools to manage your giving. So here's a quick example. Suppose you're planning to sell a business or a piece of real estate where you would normally have a significant capital gain. Well, you could donate it to your donor advised fund before you sell and not have to pay that capital gain. More money goes into the kingdom. Now, because it's an irrevocable charitable contribution, you receive an immediate deduction for the full amount. The funds can then be invested for potential growth while you prayerfully decide which ministries to support, or you could grant it out immediately. When you're ready, you simply recommend a grant, say $10,000 to your church or mission organization. The DAF sponsor, in our case, National Christian Foundation, verifies the charity and then sends the gift in your name or anonymously. Donor-advised funds have become the fastest-growing vehicle for charitable giving in America, and for good reason. They combine the flexibility of a personal giving account with the efficiency of professional administration. Here's some of the key benefits. First, simplicity. One contribution can fund all your charitable giving with a single tax receipt and one place to track every grant. Tax efficiency. You receive the deduction when you contribute, not when you give. Donating appreciated assets can help avoid capital gains taxes, allowing more funds to be directed to ministry efforts. Flexibility. You can give now and decide later where the funds should go, allowing generosity even as you discern where God is leading. Legacy planning. You can name successors, such as children or grandchildren, to continue recommending grants and carry on your legacy of giving. Focus on mission. Since the administration is handled for you, you can spend your energy discerning where God wants you to give. Of course, no giving tool is perfect. There are a few limitations to understand. First, irrevocability. Once you contribute, it's a completed gift. You can't take the money back. Qualified recipients. Grants can only be made to IRS-approved charities, not to individuals or political causes. And timing of impact. Funds can remain in the account for years, which can delay charitable impact. That's why at FaithFi, we encourage you to use donor-advised funds for timely generosity, not indefinite storage. A donor-advised fund isn't meant for hoarding resources while ministries wait for support. It's a place to organize your generosity, not store up what God has already called you to give. If you'd like to explore whether a donor-advised fund is right for you, we have an article on this topic in the latest issue of our Faithful Steward magazine, an exclusive resource sent directly to our FaithFi partners. FaithFi partners receive Faithful Steward delivered to their mailbox each quarter, along with other resources designed to help them grow in biblical stewardship. You can become a partner with a gift of $35 a month or $400 a year at faithfi.com/give. That's faithfi.com/give. All right, your calls and questions are next after this break. 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The opinions offered during this program represent the personal or professional opinions of the participants, given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace advice from a financial, medical, legal, or other professional who understands your specific situation.
Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. We're taking your calls and questions at 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. We'd love to be able to tackle whatever is on your mind today and help you process that through the lens of biblical wisdom. Again, that number 800-525-7000. You can call right now. The team is standing by, and we would love to get you in the queue today. Well, we're going to dive into your questions. Let's begin in Kansas City today. Roger, you'll be first up. Go ahead.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call. We're like in our 80s, and we've been made out a will and gone through that. But from other neighbors, who have passed away, they said, well, there's a lot more to do than just that. Now, we heard your program and wondered if you had a list of things to do and what to go through and to have the best preparation for our sons who will be executives of the wills.
Yes, sir. Well, it's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it because, of course, a will is an important piece of an estate plan, but it's only that. It's just one piece. And so, I think the first question as a Christ follower is, what are we doing to intentionally pass wisdom before wealth? And, that could look like any number of things as you think through your own story of stewardship and really the process by which the Lord has entrusted to you what he has, the values that have driven you, that you can begin to talk about that story with your kids and even adult children, and really talking about a biblical worldview of money management. To the extent you have desires in charitable giving, being able to express that to your kids and perhaps even get them involved in some giving now, so you can begin to exercise that muscle with them as they, begin to learn what it means to steward God's money God's way, and that money is a good gift from God for us to enjoy, but also for us to be able to give away, to love our neighbor and to protect the vulnerable and to spread the gospel to the ends of the earth. And so, I think that biblical perspective is just as important as the mechanics. Now, as we think through beyond that, the will, we want to think about, how much are we going to leave? There's only three places we can leave our wealth. We can give it to the government in the form of taxes. Nobody wants to do that. And that's less of an issue now because that really doesn't kick in until you have an estate over $15 million. So that really leaves heirs and ministry. And so I think really thinking through, you and your wife, how much do we want to leave to our heirs? How much do we want to leave to ministry? Some people treat ministry as another child and, factor it in that way. Others say, no, we're going to give it all to our heirs. Others weight much more heavily to ministry. And that's really a decision between you and the Lord as you steward what God has entrusted to you. But I think making those decisions and then working through that with your kids so there's good communication so they understand your plans and the why behind it well before your passing. Now, in terms of the mechanics of the will itself and the other tools, you really do want a durable financial power of attorney. That's going to name someone to handle your finances if you become incapacitated. A healthcare power of attorney, a living will, which states your wishes about end-of-life care and medical treatments. You also want beneficiary designations up to date. So this is not going to be covered by the will. This is typically stating, who is going to receive those accounts through something called a payable on death or a transfer on death or a beneficiary. And this typically applies to brokerage accounts, IRAs, 401ks, life insurance insurance, things like that. And then some people consider a revocable living trust. Now, not everyone needs one, but it can be useful if your goal is to avoid probate, manage property during incapacity, keep your affairs private, or not distribute everything at death, but allow that to happen over time in the future based on certain triggering events. So that's just a little bit about kind of the biblical perspective and how you think about it, a little bit about maybe some of those other tools beyond a will. But let's zero in on anything that's on your mind or any specific follow-up questions you have.
Okay. Yeah, we've started to work on that already with our heirs and our sons and what our plans of that, and other things that we've started with our kids, and speaking on what we would be doing with our Christian giving to those situations. And we've been working on that a couple of times, but I just wondered if you had an outline that we could kind of go through and keep working on these plans. That's what I thought. Now, you said a durable power. You talked about that, the durable power of, go back over
Yes,
that
sir,
part.
a durable financial power of attorney, that's going to name someone to handle your finances if you become incapacitated. And then the second would be a healthcare power of attorney, which also names someone to make decisions, except instead of the finances, the healthcare power of attorney allows them to make medical decisions if you cannot. And then the third piece is the living will, and that just expresses your wishes about end-of-life care and medical treatment. So, those are the three documents in addition to the will that are really essential. And then beyond that would just be making sure you have beneficiary designations up to date, and then the consideration of whether you want a revocable living trust.
Okay, revocable living trust. Well, do you have a outline of all those, or just me taking my notes here?
Yeah, it's a good question. And let me send you a copy of Ron Blue's book, Splitting Heirs, that deals with really kind of a biblical perspective on this. I think it'll be a helpful tool to you. We'll also send you a second tool called Setting Your House in Order from our friends at Compass Financial Ministry. And I think between those two, that'll give you everything you need.
Wow. Well, that's really helpful. I remember hearing one of your predecessors a long time ago. Who was the one that started in the same line?
Larry Burkett, perhaps?
Yeah, right. We used to listen to him all the time when we were really young. And then we got busy.
Oh.
But anyways, hey, thank you very much. That's what we want to start doing, working on. And so I appreciate it. This is great.
Well, I'm delighted to do it, Roger. And if we can help further along the way, don't hesitate to reach out. You hold the line. Our team will get your information. We'll get Splitting Heirs and Setting Your House in Order right out to you as our gift to you, sir. And call anytime. Well, folks, we're going to take a break here in just a moment. When we come back, we'll head out to St. Louis and talk to Mary, out to Atlanta and talk to Laura. We have room for your question, though, today. The number, 800-525-7000. Again, that's 800-525-7000. We would love to be able to tackle your questions today, help you think about them in light of biblical wisdom. As we consider money management God's way, it starts with the idea that Jesus is our treasure. Once we understand that, just like the parable in Matthew, that when we discover the treasure, the riches that we have in Christ, the sufficiency of his care and vision for us, and the ultimate sacrifice that he paid on our behalf, and that he is our treasure, we then understand that God owns everything, and we're stewards, managers of God's resources. Then money becomes a tool, a good gift from God to enjoy and to bless others and advance the gospel. That's the biblical perspective, and we'll help you apply that to your questions right after this break. Stay with us. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. We're taking your questions today. The lines are filling up, but still a few lines open at the moment. So if you have a question, call right now, 800-525-7000. Let's head out to St. Louis. Mary, thanks so much for calling. How can I help you? Oh, it looks like we lost Mary. Hopefully we'll get Mary back on the line. Let's head down to Atlanta, and Laura, go right ahead.
Hi there. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
My question is, my husband and I are full-time missionaries, and we hope to retire, God willing, at age 70. We're both in good health. My husband's 67. I'm 65. And the question is, should we take Social Security now and put it into some type of account, or should we wait? The thing is, my husband's, if he would wait till full retirement, the difference between that time and age 70 is a big increase, $600.
Yes.
In his Social Security.
Well, and that's really the key. And what I'm hearing from you is you won't need the money technically until age 70. Will you be able to cover your living expenses if you were to wait?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I think the key is to understand at 67, he's already at full retirement age. So he can now get the full benefit that was available to him. However, after full retirement age, and you alluded to this, delaying adds about 8% per year in delayed retirement credits. And those increases are permanent. There's no benefit to waiting beyond age 70, so you'd certainly want to do that. Right. And then for you at 65, you're still below your full retirement age, so claiming now would permanently reduce your benefit. Waiting to 67 avoids that, but then you also have that same benefit of waiting from 67 to 70 to increase your own benefit, where you'd get about 24% more. So you'd get 124% of your full retirement age amount. And given that you don't need the income now, your current missionary income or whatever sources of incomes you have, plus savings, is comfortably covering your expenses, I think that really, Laura, strengthens the case for delaying, especially if you're in good health and you have longevity in your family. Waiting becomes really attractive because you're essentially buying a larger guaranteed monthly income for potentially decades. And I think there's a real opportunity here for you to not only get that higher check for life, but also on top of that, be able to have those cost of living adjustments that come based on that higher amount. Now, it will take you typically about 12 years between the time you start taking it, so at age 70 until age 82 on average, for you to be paid back for what you gave up between full retirement age and 70, so for those roughly 3 years. And then from that point forward, age roughly 82 and beyond, now you're, quote, in the money because you've been made whole for what you gave up, and now you're enjoying that check that's about 24% higher than what it would have been, plus the cost of living adjustments for the rest of your life. The only other consideration some people will do is if there is one of you that has a higher retirement benefit, especially if that's your husband, because we guys will typically predecease our wives. One thing some folks will do is the wife will take her benefit at full retirement age, let her husband's benefit continue to grow. The reason being that if he were to pass away first, and again, we're just talking about what's typical, then you would be able to switch to his survivor's benefit, and then you'd enjoy that higher benefit at that point. But, I think as long as you all are good health, you have your expenses covered, your ability to get that higher check for the rest of your life can make a lot of sense, at least on one of them, if not both. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. So we shouldn't be worried about Social Security not being there in 3 years.
It's a great question, Laura, and it's a legitimate question because, as you probably have heard, 2034, 2035 is when the trust fund runs dry. And here's what you need to know about that. The reason it's happening is because of just demographics. We have more retirees now with the baby boomers than we do have workers in the system that are paying for those benefits. So more coming out, less going in, which means that Social Security Trust Fund is declining. I will tell you, though, two things. Number one is, even if it's at zero, just the current workforce at that time will still be able to fund 70 to 80% of benefits. So even if the trust fund is gone, it doesn't mean the Social Security checks go away, because just basically the ongoing tax rolls are going to fund 70 to 80% of the checks. But you might say, well, wait a minute, but I'm going to all of a sudden get a 20% haircut on what I was getting. No, I think the second thing will be true as well, and that is that it's too much of a political hot button issue for voters for Congress to avoid it. They're going to wait as long as they can, but sometime very soon they're going to have to raise the issue. And what they will likely do to shore up Social Security is either push full retirement age out, and this will be for folks that haven't received it yet, not those who are currently taking it, or they will raise FICA taxes, meaning they will just increase the tax rates to make up for that shortfall. So I fully believe between now and 2034 or 35, there will be changes that will shore up that trust fund so that you'll receive 100% of what was coming to you. Obviously, I don't know that. I certainly can't guarantee it, but I would say there's still reason to believe that waiting is probably the best option.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time.
Helpful?
God bless you. Yes,
you're
very
welcome.
Helpful.
Happy to do it, Laura. Lord bless you as well. Thanks for your call today. Well, folks, we're going to hit another break here. When we come back, we have Mary back in St. Louis. So we're going to get Mary's question. She's got some credit card debt. She's been helping a lot of family members and has gotten overextended. So she wants to know, how do I get out of debt? But how do I also approach them about being made whole with the money I loaned out? We'll also tackle Rhonda's question about an indexed annuity. Probably a variable indexed annuity, and maybe your question as well. We've got lines open. The number to call, 800-525-7000. By the way, we're still asking you to partner with us to fund free ultrasounds for preborn. Go to faithfi.com/preborn to learn more. Stick around. Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Hey, we've been talking a lot about the Moody Global Campus, the opportunity to step into the gap. 85% of pastors worldwide don't have formal training, and Moody Bible Institute through the Moody Global Campus is really solving that to bring the MBI courses over to the native tongue and language, often for oral learners in other parts of the world. And you can help with that. One of the great ways to do that is through a charitable gift annuity, where you can get a partial tax deduction on a gift made to Moody. You get a monthly income for life. And when you pass away, the rest, whatever's remaining, would go to the Moody Bible Institute. It's what a lot of people in their fourth quarter of life are looking at for income and to meet their charitable intent while getting a tax benefit along the way. If you'd like to talk to somebody at Moody about how you can be a part of that and to help to fund the incredible work of the Moody Global Campus, well, we'd love to chat about it with you. Just head to moodystewardship.org. That's moodystewardship.org, and someone from the team would be delighted to chat with you. Let's head back to the phones here. We've got some great calls holding. By the way, if you have a question today, call right now, 800-525-7000. That's 800-525-7000. Mary in St. Louis, I think we've got you back. How can I help you?
Hello. I first want to thank you for taking my call. I've been disconnected Friday and again today, so I want you to know I am grateful that I'm getting through. I admire your work, and I admire your service to the kingdom. You've already read my question. And as a Christian, I am well aware that God is not happy with my stewardship right now over his finances with what I've done with my credit card debt. I've been a very good steward all this time, and I'm wondering if the fact that I've lost three of my last three siblings in the last 4 years, and with one just being last month, had something to do with me being so gracious to others. But it's been hard to say no, and I've overextended myself, and now it's affected my own finances. I have heard you give a lot of help to people, or information where people can get help to people that have gotten into credit card debt and need to get out. So that was my first question. So thank you.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your generous heart and your desire to love your friends and family members, the people in your life, and walk alongside them. And yet, I also understand that it's causing you to be in a financial situation that is unsustainable. And so I want to kind of lean into that first. Few things test relationships like money. And when someone owes us, frustration can quickly become resentment. But as Christ followers, we're called to respond with grace and wisdom and a desire for peace. And so, one side of this is about how, if somebody owes you money, you lean into that and really approach them in a way that's private, that's gracious, but remind them of the agreement and ask about a repayment plan and consider reasonable options, perhaps a partial payment or additional time. And then if repayment is unlikely, I think that's where you have to prayerfully consider whether forgiveness may be appropriate, especially when preserving the relationship or your Christian witness matters more than the amount owed. In some cases, you may not be in a position to even be able to do that. And so you need to think and pray through that. I would also say that we need to stop the financial bleeding, if you will, immediately. As difficult as it may be, I would say moving forward, we really need to evaluate any lending or giving to family until your own finances are stable. Because helping others by going into high interest credit card debt isn't sustainable. You've already acknowledged that, but that's going to involve some tough love and some hard decisions when someone approaches you. But your role as a steward requires that as you manage God's money, because it ultimately belongs to Him, that you can only live within the provision that you have. And even though the credit card debt allows you to live outside of that provision, that's not good stewardship. With regard to how we pay these off, and I'll give you this last piece, and then let's dig in wherever you have follow-up questions. But I would say with regard to the credit card debt you have, regardless of whether somebody is going to help, start paying that back either in a lump sum or in payments over time, I would consider with the credit card debt getting onto a credit counseling program. So our friends at ChristianCreditCounselors.org would be delighted to come alongside you. They're going to help you get those interest rates down, have one monthly payment for you to begin to make some real progress toward paying this credit card debt off once and for all, especially as you're no longer adding to it. And by the way, if you go into a credit counseling program, those cards will be closed, at least while you're on the program, so you won't be able to charge anything additional. But the reduction in that interest rate is going to help you actually make real progress toward paying the principal balance off, which is obviously what you need to do to shore up your financial foundation. So I think it's number one, approaching anyone who owes you money, who's agreed to pay it back but has not, with grace and with love. I would be prayed up. I would go in trying to work out a repayment plan, but also be clear about the reality of your financial condition. Number two, we've got to stop giving and loaning to people out of an inability to do so. That's not sustainable. It's not good stewardship. And then number three, let's consider ChristianCreditCounselors.org to start making progress toward paying this off. But give me your thoughts on all that.
I totally agree, and I have been praying and asking for God to open my wisdom about that, and I felt the same message that you just gave me from Him. And like I said, even if it's coming from an emotional side of me after losing my I'm the last one left or not, it's still not good, and it's not good stewardship. And I'm not happy with myself. So that's the reason why I felt the need to call in. I need to hear you say what I've already heard. So thank you.
Well, Mary, don't be too hard on yourself. Here's what I would say. We all make mistakes, and we can leave all that at the foot of the cross. The key is, what is the next faithful step? With what God has entrusted to you today, regardless of the mistakes we've all made in the past, and I've got plenty of them, what is the next faithful step today moving forward for you to manage God's money God's way? And I think that's the key. and accountability and encouragement, godly advice and wisdom is a key part of that. So I'm so glad you called in, even though if I'm telling you something you already knew. I think that's often how the Lord confirms what we're sensing in our own heart and spirit. So don't be too hard on yourself. You can make good decisions moving forward, and I think get to a better place. Let me ask you, the people that you've loaned money to, are they the people that have since passed, or are there other people that owe you money that you have not collected on?
These people are still here, and maybe that's why my call disconnected from you on Friday, and they had said I had to get back in today. It's because over the weekend I reached out to every one of them and let them know when you borrow, there's an expectation and an understanding of repayment. And it seems like if I'm not saying anything, you're not. So they've all agreed to pay back what they can. I've explained to them whatever you can, how much. There's no amount too big, no amount too small. Just make a start. If you can't pay at all, just start. So they
well done, Mary. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. Hey, hang on the line. I want to send you an article. We dealt with this topic in issue 2 of Faithful Steward, our magazine. The title of the article is How Should a Christian Respond When Someone Owes Them Money? Stay on the line. We'll get your information and send it out to you. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. We're going to try to get to a few more phone calls before we finish the broadcast today. But first, here on a Monday, Bob Dahl is here. He's CEO and CIO at Crossmark Global Investments, a leader in faith-based investing. And Bob, I'm reviewing your deliberations this week. A lot of data out, a lot of considerations, not to mention this on-again, off-again peace talk and potentially the oil prices going higher. What are you focused on today?
All of the above. Let's start with what you just mentioned. It is on again, off again, and I think the fear that's starting to creep in a bit is we're not going to make a settlement on anything. The president wisely tried to separate the Strait of Hormuz from the nuclear question, and Iran may be saying, "Hey, we're not going to sign anything. We're not going to agree on anything." So where will that leave us? And we could have a periodic fight on our hands for months, and oil goes up a bit and then it goes back down. So it's confusing the market a bit. Beyond that, we're still in the middle of earnings season, and it continues to be nothing short of off the charts, Rob. It's excellent.
Yeah. Sure is. And Bob, is that focused on one particular sector of the economy, or is that broad-based?
It's broad-based. Of course, the sector that gets the most spotlight is technology because of all the back and forth with the semiconductor stocks and the software stocks. But by and large, technology earnings are pretty good. Yeah. More than pretty good. Pretty good is not strong enough. They're excellent.
Yeah, incredible, and we'll certainly keep an eye on that, and that's been helpful, although the market was somewhat mixed today. The fact that we are where we are in these levels is just remarkable. Bob, what about Treasury yields? We've talked about this several times, but that you talked about in your deliberations about how that bear market is now 6 years old in bonds.
Hard to believe, and a lot of people forget that interest rates, that is the 30-year bond, got down to a less than 1% yield at the height of the pandemic, and since then has been going irregularly higher. I mean, the 10-year today hit 4.70 again, and it's the 30 years, of course, is 5.25-ish, and rates have continued to tick higher as a function of the economy's good, inflation's problematic, no sign of a recession, government debt is crazy, and so interest rates creep higher.
Yeah. Bob, many were surprised by that payroll data that came out and the jobs number last week. What did you make of all that?
Yeah, it's, never does one job number make a trend. We know that. But it was pretty weak. I mean, for listeners who aren't aware, the July non-farm payroll employment was not up 80,000 as the consensus expected. It was actually down 23,000, which and the revisions from the prior 2 months were significant to the negative side. Summarized by saying, the last 3 months, average monthly job growth has been 20,000. That's the lowest we've seen in quite some time. And the good news is when we've seen that in the past, the Fed almost never raises rates. So let's hope that continues.
Yeah, and perhaps that becomes more of the story moving forward. It seems like the Fed, at least in the last 12 to 24 months, has been less of a factor. It's really been more about the strength of the economy and earnings, but perhaps that idea that we're not going to see an increase in rates is what is going to move this market higher from this point.
It certainly could. A necessary condition is continued off-the-charts earnings, which we could get. And I don't want to imply just because we had some weak employment numbers, this takes the possibility of a Fed hike off the table. Remember, they're still dealing with inflation that's significantly higher than their 2% target. So I don't think we're out of the woods on a potential rate increase.
Excellent. Bob, we appreciate you as always. Thanks for your time.
Have a good week. Bye-bye.
All right. That's Bob Dahl. He's CEO and CIO at Crossmark Global Investments. Sign up for his weekly investment commentary, Dahl's Deliberations, at crossmarkglobal.com. All right. Let's round out the broadcast today. We'll head out to Indiana. Rhonda, how can I help?
Hi, Ron. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate your program. Really learn a lot. My question is, we went with our financial advisor, and he is suggesting that we take out a RILA, registered index-linked annuity. He explained the fixed annuity and index and the variable to us, and he says that, he has a top and a bottom set, and we can choose what we want. He's recommending a 6-year commitment. I'm 65 and my husband is 70. And so, we're looking at retirement in the next couple of years.
Yes. Okay. And so you haven't done anything yet. You're just still considering whether this is, something that would be right for you. Is that right?
We've been with a financial advisor. This one is a new one. It's with the same company, but we lost the last one. And we have a lot of diversified investments already.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I mean, so this is a typical index-linked annuity that gives you some stock market upside while the insurance company absorbs anything beyond a certain level. And then you get that downside protection in exchange for giving up the upside. And, that the downside protection might buffer you against the first 10, 15, or 20% of an index decline. You got to read the fine print. And then, again, you're giving up that upside. You get tax-deferred growth. The downside is you can lose principal. Many of the fixed index annuities don't allow that. The protection is often limited. So you need to understand what that buffer is. And then again, that upside is limited as well. They're also very complex. And then you've got what are called liquidity restrictions. So, you've got surrender charges. If you need to get to that money early, it can be expensive. And then the tax treatment on the back end, the gains from the non-qualified annuity are generally taxed as ordinary income, which is going to be at a higher tax rate than the long-term capital gains. One important distinction that I would make is that the RILA's buffer is not the same as a guarantee that you can't lose money. And so, if it were in fact a 10% buffer, if the index falls 8%, then it may absorb the decline. If it's down 25%, then you could have a substantial loss. So you just need to understand that. The other thing I would say is you just need to evaluate, what you're giving up with the limited liquidity, just in terms of, do we need to be able to get to this money in this season of life? And I would also say, and we've seen this on full display the last number of years, is that often how we returns in stock market gains is because of those years where the market's up dramatically. But one of the biggest downsides in my mind of these products is that we're giving that up. And so we don't have the ability to get those big up years that factor into the average annual returns because we're handing that over to the insurance company in exchange for that buffer. And I just feel like that's a big trade-off. I guess, in my mind, I would rather you build a properly diversified portfolio where you have the right allocation so that if the market's down, you could weather it and wait for it to come back. But the reality is, at least historically speaking, it always does. I mean, whether we look at 87 or the .com or the Great Recession in 08, or even the pandemic, yes, we have those big sell-offs and we need to be able to absorb that and not sell and be okay with that. But the market always recovers and goes to new highs. And so I just want to make sure that the complexity and the fees and the limited liquidity and the upside, that you're turning over a portion of it to the insurance company is all worth it for you to get, what you're looking for out of this product. Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, kind of. Like when they explain it gets to be really confusing. And I didn't think that you were a big advocate for annuity. That's why I wanted to call you before we made a decision. They told us it was like a 10%, top. That's the most that we could get even if the market went real high, and that we could never go below 5%. And it's a 6-year commitment. But I think hearing you say be more diversified. So what would you recommend instead of an annuity?
Yeah. Well, what are your goals? What was it that you were looking to achieve that he felt like this product would be the right fit?
Well, I mean, we have a pretty nice portfolio already. I mean, we're doing very well. So I'm not really sure why he just was recommending it. And I don't know if it was, for his benefit or for ours. But
so what is your total investable assets, if you don't mind sharing? And then what portion were you thinking about putting in the RILA?
Well, he figured that we have like 1.7 mil, and then he wanted to do like 350,000.
Okay. And is he saying just because he wants you to have more protection for that portion?
He didn't say exactly why, but I know that's what an annuity is for. And we do have other annuities through the IRAs and the
Yeah. Okay.
So
I think at the end of the day, carving out a portion of a portfolio to reduce what's called the sequence of returns risk, the prospect that, as you're entering retirement or in the early years of your retirement, you could have a meaningful downside that could hurt you, I think is legitimate. I guess what gives me pause is you're taking a fifth of the portfolio that's already performing well and you're putting it into a more complex insurance product that's naturally going to have liquidity restrictions. And I just want to know exactly what problem we're solving for before doing that. Why do we need to take 20+% of the portfolio that's appropriately allocated and move it into a complex insurance product? I'm just not hearing a real case for that. So I guess at the end of the day, I'd want to know, what are we trying to accomplish and why is this way to do it versus what we've already been doing that's been working very well? So perhaps that's the next question, is just to get a little more understanding of why he's making this suggestion. I hope that helps. Thanks for your call today. Faith and Finance Live is a partnership between Moody Radio and Faith Fi. Big thanks to my team. Come back and join us tomorrow. We'll see you then.